Have you ever wondered what is the most important trait or skill or mindset that people need to have in order to become extremely successful? Have you ever sat there and wondered, what is it that some people are missing and what is it that others aren't that makes the difference between them winning or losing? Well, I'm here to tell you the number one trait, the number one mindset, even you could consider it a skill in my opinion, is self-confidence. All successful people have developed high levels of self-confidence in themselves, and that's why they're able to accomplish what they have accomplished. And all the people that you know who are talented, smart, well-educated, well-meaning, who don't have the results, it's probably because they're lacking that self-confidence to go after what they need to go after to make it happen and get the results they deserve to have in their life. And in today's video, I'm gonna talk about exactly how I develop self-confidence within myself and how I've taught many of the people that I mentor and train to do the same thing. My name is Nima Attar. I started a business in the financial industry at the age of 23. 4.5 years later, I was earning a 7-figure income and had over 500 associates working with me. The main reason I was able to accomplish all the things that I have so far in my life at such a young age is because I learned to develop self-confidence within myself. And in today's video, I'm gonna share with you 5 major tips that will allow you to do the same thing, but I highly recommend you watch till the end because the last 2 tips are so important that without them, the first 3 tips won't be as effective. Before I go into the 5 tips, I want to define for you what confidence means and how it's different from self-esteem. Confidence in every language means this exact same thing. Trust in yourself. And if you think about it, how you trust others and you relate that to trusting yourself, it becomes a lot easier to understand where confidence comes from and where it's lost. Now, how is confidence different from self-esteem? Confidence is the belief that you can do something. You can face a fear successfully. You can accomplish a certain task successfully. You can achieve a dream or a goal successfully. That's confidence. You trust yourself to be able to accomplish certain things. Self-esteem is accepting yourself and loving yourself for exactly who you are. In order to accomplish, in order to achieve, you need self-confidence. In order to live a fulfilling and happy life, you need self-esteem. And there's many successful people out there who are very wealthy, who are very famous, very good at what they do, that actually lack a significant amount of self-esteem. In fact, one of the reasons they're so successful is because in their mind, they felt that if they have more money, they'll love themselves more and be happier. If they have more fame, they'll love themselves more and be happier. So they chase the external in order to fulfill something that can only be fulfilled with the internal. In today's video, I want to teach you the self-confidence part, but I highly recommend you all work on self-esteem as well because self-confidence without self-esteem creates a highly accomplished, unhappy person. Self-esteem without self-confidence creates a very happy person who doesn't accomplish much, but somebody who has self-confidence and self-esteem can not only accomplish many things, but also be happy all the way while they're doing it. Here's tip number 1 for building self-confidence. Keep the promises you make to yourself. I said it earlier in the introduction. Confidence means trusting yourself. Well, how do you trust other people? If somebody tells you they're gonna show up somewhere at a certain time and they come 30 minutes late, do you trust them more or trust them less? If somebody says to you, I'm gonna pay you back the money you lent me by this time, and they pay you back 3 weeks later, do you trust them more or do you trust them less? If somebody tells you, hey, I'm gonna do this thing for you by this date, and they never do that thing for you, do you trust them more or trust them less? I think the answer is obvious. You trust them way less. So if you wanna trust yourself more, if you wanna have more confidence, you have to keep the promises you make to yourself. That means when you tell yourself, I'm gonna go to the gym today, you gotta go to the gym that day. That means when you tell yourself, I'm gonna give it everything I got to accomplish this task or this goal, you actually give it everything you got to accomplish that goal or task. That means if you tell yourself, I'm gonna wake up at 6:30 a.m. tomorrow, when your alarm clock goes off at 6:30 a.m. that day, you better get up and get after your day instead of hitting the snooze button and sleeping 15 more minutes. I know that's a small example and it seems insignificant, but I truly believe every discipline leads to another and every lack of discipline leads to another. Meaning if you start off your day by breaking the promise you made to yourself on what time you're gonna wake up, it's easier now for you to break the promise to yourself of going to the gym. And if you do that, it's easier to break the promise to yourself of eating healthy and so on and so forth. So it creates a negative momentum in your life. And vice versa. If you keep the promise of waking up in the morning at the time that you said you would, even if you're still tired, now you're more likely to keep the promise of going to the gym. If you do that, you're more likely to keep the promise of eating healthy. and you create positive momentum on that end. And every time you keep the promise, your confidence goes a little bit higher for you to keep the next promise. Tip number 2, be a great coach to yourself. One of the biggest reasons why people lack confidence is because they're a terrible coach to themselves. Nima, what's the difference between being a great coach or a terrible coach to yourself? Great question. Here's what the difference is. A great coach will tell you exactly where you're messing up, why you're messing up there, and how to fix it in a positive way that is effective, that creates action and that creates confidence within you. A negative coach, a terrible coach, will tell you how bad you are, how you're never gonna be good enough, and how you're a failure. Most people have a habit of being a terrible coach to themselves, not a great coach. I'll give you a very quick example. Let's say you promised yourself you're gonna wake up at 6:30 a.m. And at 6:30 a.m., you end up hitting the snooze button over and over again until it ends up being 7:30. What would a terrible coach do at that point? The terrible coach comes up and says, see how lazy you are. You always tell yourself you're gonna wake up and you never wake up on time. You never keep the promises you make to yourself. This is why you're a failure and you'll never get anything in life done. That's a terrible coach. Many people talk to themselves that exact same way when they wake up later than they expected. What would a great coach do instead? A great coach would acknowledge the mistake you made, would give you confidence and encouragement on how you can overcome it, and then give you a solution that you can act on. Let me give you an example. A great coach will come and say, hey, this morning, you should have woken up at 6:30 a.m. That's the promise you made to yourself. Instead, you stayed in bed until 7:30. Everyone makes mistakes. You're a human. And I know you have what it takes to be disciplined and to wake up on a time that you allocate to yourself. You got that in you. Here's what I recommend you do tomorrow morning in order to make sure it happens. Instead of putting your alarm right next to your bed where you can snooze it easily, why don't you put your alarm in another room or in a bathroom next to the water, so as soon as you wake up, right before you hit snooze, you wash your face with cold water instead. See, the great coach acknowledges a mistake you made, but gives you the confidence and encouragement to actually do better the next day and gives you a solution to act on. I myself make errors in discipline all the time. I wake up later than I should many times. Sometimes I say I should go to the gym, but I don't. Many of that happens. We're all human. No one's perfect. What I've learned to do that allows me to stay confident is I'm a great coach to myself. I acknowledge what I did wrong, and then I give myself the encouragement and confidence that I need to do better the next day. And by doing that, it keeps me in the game and it keeps me going. Whereas if I was a terrible coach to myself, I would probably quit and I wouldn't continue and I would never see the results of the disciplines that I want to inhabit. Here's another thing you need to do to be a great coach to yourself. You have to recognize what you want repeated. This is one of the major things that I've done that has helped me be a great leader, not only to myself, but to many others. I recognize the behaviors that I want repeated. What does that mean? That means if you wake up on time in the morning, you got to recognize that in yourself. As soon as you wake up, you should say, good for me for waking up on the time that I promised. I'm a champion. When you go to the gym, especially on those days you don't feel like going, recognize that in yourself. Man, I'm such a beast. I'm such a boss. I'm such a champion because I went to the gym today even though I didn't feel like it. You have to constantly recognize the great things you do if you want those things to be repeated. Here's why that's so important. Many studies have been done that the effects that you should gain in terms of dopamine from doing a positive action can be diminished or completely extinguished with negative self-talk. Meaning, most people, when they go to the gym and have a great workout, should have dopamine released within their body after. But many studies have been done that when people have negative self-talk after an activity, that dopamine is not released. So the person goes to the gym, has a great workout, and you know what they do after? They go and weigh themselves and they say, ugh, I still didn't lose any weight. What's the point? I'm never gonna lose weight. I'm big bone, blah, 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 blah. And that negative self-talk kills all the dopamine they could have gotten. And you know what it does? It creates a feeling within themselves that says every time you go to the gym, you feel disappointed. Every time you go to the gym, you feel discouraged. Why do they feel that way? Because of the negative self-talk they had after their workout or during their workout, which killed the positive action that they took, that if they kept up over and over again and stay disciplined and stay consistent in it, they would have eventually got results. So if you're someone who's lacking consistency, maybe this is the problem. Maybe you're doing the thing you should do, and instead of being proud of yourself for it, instead of recognizing yourself for it, you're actually shitting on yourself and telling yourself how bad you are, and that negative feeling keeps you from wanting to do it over and over again. I'll give you one quick example before I move on from this topic because I think it's so important. Even when it comes to my YouTube filming, there's times where I've lacked consistency in it. And when I look back, it's because after a filming session, I ended up recognizing the negative stuff. Man, that took so long. I had to do it over and over again so much. I overthought that so much. Was it good? Should I have done better? And that negative self-talk created a negative feeling in me that made me want to avoid filming in the future. And by recognizing that within myself and becoming aware of it, I was able to change it. And by changing it, I was able to get back on the consistency that I needed to have in this area, for example, in order to eventually have the results that I'm looking for. Here's the third reason why being a great coach to yourself is so important. A great coach instills confidence in you that you can become better, that you can grow, that you can improve. Whenever we lack confidence in something, it's because usually we're new to it. Usually we haven't had enough practice. Usually we're not getting the results we want from it because we haven't had enough repetition in that thing. What a great coach does to you, and I'm asking you to be a great coach to yourself, this is why I'm bringing this up, is that you have to constantly remind yourself that I can get better. I can grow, I can change. My results currently is based on my skill set currently. And if I keep putting in the right repetition and if I keep practicing the right things, I will eventually get good enough and get better and get to the level where I can accomplish the results that I want. That's so important. And here's why this whole category, this whole tip number 2 is such a big tip in my opinion. If you think about it, if you're an athlete and you play for a great coach, what does that great coach do for you more than anything else? They instill confidence in you. What does a terrible coach do for you more than anything else? They take confidence away from you. I remember when I was 12, 13, I played for a coach and they yelled at me all the time. They kept telling me, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that in soccer. And I remember my confidence in my soccer abilities went down so much. Even though I was becoming a better player, I was lacking confidence in my ability to execute those skills that I was developing. And every time I would go into a game, I was so anxious, I was so scared, I was so nervous that I was going to get yelled at by this coach and be told how bad I am that I would mess up automatically. The next year, I played for a different coach who did the complete opposite for me. They built confidence in me. They reminded me how good I was. They reminded me how much even better I could become. And every time I played for that coach, I was playing at my best because I had the confidence from them that I was good enough, that I was one of the top players, and that my spot was secure. So that's why being a great coach to yourself is so important. You have to instill that confidence in yourself on a day-to-day, even moment-to-moment basis. Tip number 3, and this is probably going to be the hardest tip for most of you listening right now. Remove negative associations from your life. Negative associations in many cases are people, but it's also the news. It's also negative media outlets. It's also negative music. Anything that you are exposed to is considered an association. So any negative associations you have in your life, again, whether it's people, whether it's music, whether it's movies, whether it's shows, whether it's the news, whatever it is, eliminate from your life. It's killing the positivity within. It's giving you a terrible attitude, and it's making you much, much less confident than you actually are. Remember, you are the average of the 5 people you associate with the most often. So if the people you are associating with, friends, family, whoever, are people that lack confidence, are people that have a negative attitude, guess what? You're going to be the average of that. If the 5 people you associate with are positive people, are people that feel confident in themselves, have a great attitude, you're probably going to be the average of that. And one of the things that I hear all the time when I mention this, because I mention this advice all the time, because nothing will help you change your life sooner and faster than changing your associations, is people go, but I've been friends with them for so long. But they're my family. But they're this, they're that. How could I? Well, let me tell you something. If those people love you, they will respect the boundaries you set for them. So if you have certain friends or certain family members who tend to be negative, who when you go to them and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, they actually put you down and say, you'll never do that. How the hell are you going to do it? Who are you to say? And you set a boundary with them and say, listen, I don't like it when you talk to me that way. I don't like it when you put on your own negativity and your own lack of confidence onto me. I don't like it when you talk about this, or that. And you set those boundaries and they don't listen to you. They continue to do it. Then guess what? Those people don't necessarily have the best intention for you in mind, because people that love you and care about you should respect your boundaries. So when you set those boundaries and it still doesn't work, what's your other option? To diminish the amount of time you spend with them so you have less exposure to that negativity. But here's what I've realized as well. It's not even so much what people say, it's the emotions and energies that we get from them. So sometimes you might get really good at setting boundaries and they may be willing to listen, but if they still have that negative vibe and negative energy around you, you're still going to feel negative. So honestly, my recommendation is if you really want to change your life, diminish the time you spend with these people. I'm not saying remove them from your life. I'm not saying never see them again. But if it's someone you talk to every day, maybe it's time to talk to them once a week. If it's someone you talk to once a week, maybe it's time to talk to them once a month. If you talk to them once a month, maybe it's time to talk to them once every quarter. If you talk to them once a quarter, maybe you talk to them once a year. But diminishing that exposure to them allows you to grow to the person you're supposed to become. And guess what that does? It will inspire them to potentially do the same thing. In my life, as I've grown and as I've become more successful, I've had to diminish the time I spend with certain people in order to go to that next level. And at the time, it felt bad. At the time, it felt like, hey, am I leaving them behind? But I had to remind myself, I can't save someone else by drowning alongside them. What I can do is save myself, get to the shore, find a life jacket, find a boat potentially, and send it their way or throw the life jacket their way and give them the chance to save themselves the way I was saved. And what I always remind myself is, I can't change people, but I can inspire them to change by the example I give to them. And if I can show them that I was able to become more confident, if I can show them that I was able to become more positive, if I can show them I was able to create a better life for myself by doing some of the positive things that they're not doing, they're way more likely to do it than for me to keep around them and stay around them, hoping that one day they might miraculously change. All relationships are like an elastic band. And when one person is growing and the other person isn't, the elastic band ends up getting stretched. And if it gets stretched enough, just like any other elastic band, it's going to eventually rip. And it's unfortunate, it's hurtful, it's painful, but it's a reality of life. So if you're someone who goes, I'm comfortable with these people and I don't want to lose them, then you may have to say goodbye to your dreams. I'm being very honest with you. Because when they talk about sacrifices, when all the successful people you know talk about sacrifices, we all think they mean, sacrificing our time, sacrificing our leisure. But it also means sacrificing certain associations that we care about right now and love right now that are holding us back. Unintentionally most of the time. And you need to be prepared to let go of that if you're going to grab onto the dreams that you have. And I'm telling you, once you do, many of these people will be inspired and want to follow along with you. That happened to me. And the ones that aren't, trust me, they're happier doing their thing without you imposing that level of boundary and positivity on them. And you'll be happier living the life you are and making the friends that you've made, knowing that they're going to be more aligned with where you're going and the dreams that you have anyways. Here's tip number 4. You have to practice courage. I don't believe in being fearless. I don't think there's a single human being out there that is fearless. We all have fears. Some have more, some have less. But the difference between a person who ends up being successful and confident and someone who doesn't is their ability to practice courage. One of the things that I had to do in order to go to the next level is I had to put a target for myself to face a fear or get out of my comfort zone as often as humanly possible. It went to the point where I said to myself that if I'm not facing a fear or I'm not getting out of a comfort zone on a daily basis, at least on a weekly basis, then I'm not doing enough to grow. And here's what I found. Every time I faced a fear, and I realized it's not that bad, or I overcame it successfully, every time I got out of my comfort zone, I realized, wow, this isn't that bad. It's not as awkward as I thought. It's not as bad as I thought. I got more confidence. And you know what it ended up imprinting in my mind? Fears are way bigger in our imagination than they ever will be in reality. The worst thing you're afraid of right now, the thing that you are the most terrified of, that when you think about it, it gives you immediate anxiety, I promise you, is not even nearly as bad as you're making it seem in your mind as it is in reality. Do you know why? Because we're way stronger than we think we are. We're way better than we think we are. And we are way more adaptable than we think we are. And even in the worst situations, you find that you're able to adapt. You find that you're able to find joy and happiness again, especially if you have a growth mindset. So face your fears, and every time you do, you become more confident, and more importantly, you become more courageous, which allows you to go for bigger things in life, which allows you to get bigger things in life. Tip number 5, and this tip is so important. It's a tip that I used in times where I felt so low, where I felt like, man, am I good enough? Am I ever gonna make it? In those hard times in my life, this tip saved me more than anything else. I would take a cue card, and I would write down the great qualities that I believe I have. I believe I have. Not great qualities that other people told me I have, but I genuinely believe that I have. And I don't know who you are that's watching this. I don't know if you're someone that's lacking confidence right now or you have the utmost level of confidence. But even if you're someone who has the lowest amount of confidence, you can still come up with 3 to 5 qualities that you truly believe you have that you're proud of. And here's what I want you to do. Anytime you feel insecure, anytime you feel doubtful, anytime you feel discouraged, anytime you feel bad, take out this cue card. If possible, do it in front of a mirror. If not, that's fine. Just read it and read those qualities to yourself. But here's the most important thing about this exercise. You have to be congruent. What do I mean by congruent? If you read the great qualities that you have, that you're proud of, and you're reading it like this: I'm kind, I care for people, I'm hardworking, I am willing to grow and change. There is no congruency, because if you truly believe you have those qualities, shouldn't you be proud? Shouldn't you be joyful in that moment? Shouldn't you be celebrating it? Of course. So your tonality has to match. Your body language has to match. You have to show that you actually are happy that you have these qualities. So as hard as it is in that moment, because you're feeling really bad in that moment, what you need to do is you need to stand up, you need to shake yourself up, and you need to read it like this: I am a kind person. I am a caring person. I am hardworking. I am willing to grow and change. You see? There's congruency there. Your tonality matches your words now. Your body language matches, and you'll feel it more. And sometimes I would read those things to myself 5, 10 times until I felt a lot better. But that exercise reinforced what I love about myself and the great qualities I have in myself, which in that hard moment made it much easier. So use that tip. In my opinion, if you use all these 5 tips for the next 90 days, you will see a significant change in your self-confidence, in your self-belief, and most importantly, in your results. Here's my last recommendation. Watch my YouTube video on EQ versus IQ and the tips that I give on how you can increase your emotional intelligence. Because the higher your emotional intelligence, the easier it is to become confident and develop confidence, and the easier it is to bounce back from a moment of lack of confidence when you're feeling it. I'm gonna put the link right here, but before you go, please share this video with anyone else that you know that could benefit from it. Put a comment below on what was your main takeaways, and subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified every time we have a new video. Thank you. Bye-bye.